Oh, I don't know why, but sometimes we just need escape. Now Jerry's got his boots on and he's dragging us out and far away. It's a fever.
Kia ora, and welcome to another episode of Tararua Fever, the podcast that is anything and everything to do with tramping in the Tararua Ranges. This is episode 7, Getting Away for the SK. I am your host today, Alan, not Jerry. I am not an imposter expert who just loves to yarn about tramping. I'm just Jerry's mate who doesn't even like tramping. So here we are. Today we'll be covering a tramp with Jer, in which he did a while ago, apparently. And then for Walk and Talk, I am informed Jerry has a pretty awesome interview with Andy Carruthers on doing the SK, whatever the SK might be. Lastly, amongst it all, I will be introducing a new segment called Knob of the Week. Yes, that's right. Don't judge it yet. We'll explain when we get to that bridge. Now, we're just going to give Jerry a ring.
Kia ora, Jerry speaking.
Hi, Jerry. It's Alan here on Tararua Fever.
Oh, g'day. Yeah.
Have you got a minute to chat about a tramp?
Thanks for having me, Al. Yeah, I do. It's
All
nice
right.
to be here.
Okay, that's lovely. All right. Well, go on then. What's this tramp you want to tell me about?
Well, it's a tramp that I did a wee while ago. I mean, I actually wanted to do a reflection.
Right.
Remember when you gave me feedback a while ago about a bit of a Tarurua 101?
Yes.
I've been trying to thread a little bit of that sort of stuff into the reflections in the last few weeks. So I want this one to sort of add to that. It's not necessarily the standard one. I've been sort of doing a range of like from rivers to the access points and stuff like that. This one's a little bit more of a preference one for me.
Right. I'm with you.
I want to speak a little bit more candidly than I normally might.
Oh. All right then.
I want to be a bit frank and unapologetic about my point of view.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm excited. So go on then.
Well, okay. So my reflection today is to do with solo tramping. Tramping alone, going out into the wilderness, into the middle of nowhere by yourself. How does it sound to you, Al?
Terrifying, Jerry.
I 100% agree. And that's why the reflection today is about how I never go solo tramping.
Yes.
And there's a few reasons why. First of all, just broadly, the risk that presents when you're tramping by yourself, I think is so much more than when you're with a party or just even another person. I just think that so many things can go wrong in the bush, and there's so many factors against you that if something is to happen, the risk when you're by yourself is so much higher. I know that lots of people do it all the time. I go tramping all the time, and I see people solo tramping, and good for them. I'm not here to tell them that they shouldn't be doing that right now. But what I really wanted to say is why I don't decide to do it. I think for many people, some people like their own company. I do too. When I'm in the garden in the weekend, like just putting on a podcast or, just being with my own thoughts is fantastic. I just don't want to put myself into a situation where, and like I said, if something goes wrong, I'm very, very vulnerable. And that's where a lot of the anxiety can come from. I call it my precautionary principle in tramping is things going wrong. And that can be a range of things from rolling your ankle to, natural phenomena like a landslip that you could, be on or a part of. Or, I sometimes use the example of what if the big earthquake hit while we're out in the bush? And I mean, even if you are part of a group or you got another person with you or whatever, you could be in big trouble then. But if you're by yourself, I think it's the risk is tenfold. And these things happen to people all the time as well. I think there's search and rescue is often kept quite busy every year from people needing to be rescued. There is the PLBs that we take with us, so you can always just pull your PLB and a chopper comes and picks you up and you're off to hospital or whatever you're rescued. But I still think that you don't want to use that as your 100% safety net. And so that's why, I've got some of my best mates that I go tramping with, like Kentos and Ben and, well, yourself now.
yeah, I'm experienced now, yes.
Yeah. And on this topic, I just want to do a little shout out. Sorry for the typey sounds. Laura, I'm not going to say her last name.
That's all right. There's plenty of Lauras around.
Yeah, that's right. What she did say is that one suggestion about talking about the notoriety of the Tarurua Ranges, they are well known. So it'd be interesting if you found someone to discuss why they are so notorious. And there's many reasons for that. The variation in weather that can change quite quickly, the terrain, all sorts. And she said how their reputation stacks up against other ranges. So I think that's actually a really good topic for another time. But I think just a little bit of a nod to that point about how and why they are so notorious, and then coupled with that risk factor of going out by yourself is an interesting one. So I think just overall safety, I choose to go with friends whenever I can. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's my candid, unapologetic point of view.
I see, Jerry. Yes, that does. You weren't apologising for that. That is correct.
For today's Tararua 101 and reflection.
Yeah. And also, yeah, I guess you're not just putting yourself at risk if you go out on your own, because the people have got to come and rescue you.
That's right.
So you're putting all sorts of people at risk.
Time and money and resources as well, yeah. Yeah.
So that's the pre-chat done.
Yeah.
We're into the meat and veg of the meal now. What's this tramp you want to tell me about?
So this tramp is about a time when I went solo tramping.
Oh, right. So when you didn't listen to those rules and just went for it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I was desperate to do this particular tramp. I'd been looking at the map for ages, just gazing at it, going, yeah, I can knock that one out. And I just had no one to go with me. So, but I will say that it was doing this tramp by myself that it kind of just cemented my point of view around not wanting to go tramping generally by myself.
Yeah.
Even though I had a fantastic time and I met some two particular guys who were fantastic. The tramp was what I call the Western Crossing, and it's where I left from Kapakapanui on the Kapiti coast, and I came out at Kaitoke in Upper Hutt, and I think it was over a long weekend. Gosh, maybe it was an Anzac weekend. I think it was just before winter, so it wasn't super cold, but it was not super warm either, kind of as per usual in the Tarurua Ranges. And I took the train out. I took a half day off work. I left my house in Buckley Road, Southgate, walked down the road, hopped on a bus with my massively large pack. I was carrying way too much. Hopped on the bus to the railway station, then on a train, and my dad picked me up from the Waikanai train station and dropped me at the Ngāti Awa road end, I think it's called, that road end for going out Kapakapanui.
Right.
And so yes, that first night was spent in Kapakapanui Hut. It only took me 2 hours to get there, which I think is pretty good. Al, ask me how steep Kapakapanui is.
How steep is Kapakapanui, Jerry?
It's bloody steep.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just marched off up there one evening on your own, got to a hut, went to sleep.
Yeah.
Just relied on it being normal people in the hut. Like my one was kind of concern is that who are you going to meet in these huts? Like, there's going to be some characters in there, isn't there?
It takes all sorts to make the world go round, Al.
Yeah. So were you on your own that evening, or did you have cellmates?
Yeah, good question. I thought I was going to be on my own all evening. I even went to bed and couldn't sleep, so I got up again and made myself a cup of tea and stuff. And I was just getting water from the tank outside, and it was probably about 9:30.
Right.
And this torch comes out of the bushes, and it was just a lady on her own who decided to come up quite late as well.
I mean, that's terrifying, isn't it? Like...
Well, yeah, someone coming out in the dark. It's just like, oh, here's someone coming. She was a volunteer search and rescue person, which was...
Wow. Just practicing?
Just out for a walk. She was heading to Otaki Forks the next day. I don't know. Again, a solo tramper who's happy with her own company. Good on her. All power to her.
Yes.
But we had a nice night in the hut. She was cooking dinner and all that, and I was sort of reading my book in the hut and yarning about actually tramping by yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, and she told me a whole lot of stuff about search and rescue.
Well, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay, carry on. Next morning.
Right, next morning. I, as you know, like to leave real early. And this particular morning I did not. It might have been like 9 o'clock departure.
Yeah, because I mean, you said this, and then we didn't leave till way after 9. So I've seen no evidence of you liking to get up early, Jerry.
Well, I don't think we had a huge rush out of there, do we, Al?
No. I thought you'd be pushing, but no.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, look, we both slept in that morning. I was heading to Elder Hut on the Renata Ridge, and it's just before you hit the southern crossing under Mount Aston. So I knew that it was going to take me 3 or 4 hours to get to what's called the Maymore Junction road end. I went over Kapakapanui and down the other side, and you come out at a place called Maymore Junction. It takes about 3.5 hours. And that is a little car park, small road, off-road area that links up with the Tararua road. And just after that, there's a hut called Renata Hut. So yeah, that took me about 3 hours, 3.5 hours maybe.
Just in time for a spot of lunch.
Just in time for a spot of lunch.
Lovely.
The conditions were a little bit hit and miss. When I got to the top of Kapakapanui, which is about 1,000 meters, it was pretty brisk. A bit of a southerly cloud coming over, a bit overcast. But once you're up and over the other side of Kapakapanui, into the bush, it's actually quite a nice walk going down that way.
Yeah, and it depends on your definition of quite a nice walk, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah,
probably.
I don't think you'd like it, Al.
No, yeah.
You might not, although it's all downhill.
Just like quite steeply downhill.
Quite steep downhill.
Walking backwards at any point, going down backwards.
Yeah, a few of them.
Yeah, right, nice. Yeah. No, I'll probably be all right without that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're busy that week.
Yeah.
And yeah, got to Renata Hut round about midday. Yeah. And there was a couple of other parties heading to Renata. There's somebody who was just going in and out, it's only like a 30-minute walk from the road end, even if that. But there was one group of four guys who I actually overtook, and then they left. I just took my time for lunch, and they actually left, and they were heading to Elder Hut, the same place I was going, for the night as well. So I caught.
Were they like lads, or were they some older gentlemen?
The older gentlemen, middle age, older to middle age. 2 of them were English,
right? Yeah,
and the other 2 were brothers, and they were all quite good crack. So after lunch, I caught up with them, going along the Renata Ridge. The Renata Ridge is real cool. I want to go back there sometime soon. You sort of have a bit of up and down, and then you hit these 2 sort of high points, and you can look back to where you've come from. It's sort of just above the tree line. It starts clearing. You can look right back, and I couldn't quite see. Well, I could see Kapakapanui, but beyond that, I couldn't see Kapiti Island at that point anymore. That was long gone. But you can often get quite good views. You can also look right down into the Waitaruru Forks, and I've always wanted to go up from Snowy Hut, which is not actually an official hut in the Tarurua Ranges. It's just I actually don't know the history of it, but it's what they call a lost hut, and you can get up to Elder Hut from there, from the Waitaruru River. So I was scoping out that little mish,
right?
And yeah, caught up with the 4 gents, and I just walked behind them. I didn't need to overtake them. They were going at a good pace, and sort of just started to just yarn with them, just sort of kind of by myself.
You basically joined into their tramp, didn't you? And
yeah. And walked with them to Elder Hut. Now, Elder Hut is an awesome hut, Al. It's only a 4-bedder.
Right. Okay. Snug.
Real snug. And it sort of sits out on the Renata Ridge with this amazing view.
So, which of the 4 men did you share with, Derry, when you got there?
Well, I'll get to this, Al.
Right. Okay.
The clag really came in that night. I opted to sleep on the floor.
Right.
And one of the guys had a Cedar Summit sleeping mat that he gave me, because my one was nowhere near as good as that. And so that was actually a real good road test for actually getting one later on myself.
Right. Okay.
It's the one that you slept on when we went tramping.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. So I slept under the table.
Right.
We cleared the stalls, and it was the only way to fit my legs and my body in that snug as hut. So yeah, it was a real claggy night out there. It was.
You're going to have to explain what claggy means.
Oh, okay. Claggy is when the sort of cloud comes through. There's very low visibility.
Right.
Some people refer to it as pea soup, or like it's just porridge out there. There's you're in the clouds, you can't see. Can be hard to navigate in.
Right. Okay. Well, the pea soup cleared in the morning, and off you went.
Yep. The next day. So interestingly enough, the two English guys came back the way that we'd come the day before.
Right.
It was the two other guys who were brothers who were remained, and they were heading the same way as I was heading, just by chance. And I'd love to give a little bit of a shout out to them. They probably don't listen to this podcast at all. They probably don't even know it exists. But they were their names were Laurie and Bruce. And I actually didn't know they were brothers at this point. I think I found out later that day. Laurie was this tall, slender guy like myself, and Laurie was this shorter guy who was a builder, and both of them were hilarious. They had such good banter between them. And so when you find out later on that they're brothers, I went, oh my god,
it all makes sense now.
Yeah. And they were a really great company, and they were super happy for me to sort of tramp together. We sort of became a small party in of ourselves. And
So you stopped solo tramping?
Well, yeah, I mean,
halfway through the solo tramp?
essentially I tagged on to other parties, I guess, which I was grateful for. I was still kind of feeling that precautionary principle, even though it was pretty reasonable weather. Just felt that sort of comfort of being with others. And between Elder Hut and Aston, as you get onto the Southern Crossing, it's you sort of got to go along the ridge a little bit more. You're sort of heading upward at that point, and then you start really sort of climbing up the side of Mount Aston. And it was one of those times, I've had it when I've done the Southern Crossing myself, where you're sort of climbing up quite steep terrain, and you've got cloud above you, cloud below you, and you can't actually see where you've been.
That doesn't sound like good fun to me.
Well, it's exhilarating, but it's also that the precautionary principle is kicking in the whole time. I'm like, oh my god, this is crazy,
Yes.
feeling a bit hardcore right now, even though it's not really. But it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And then we got onto the Southern Crossing, and as we came across Alpha, the weather cleared completely. It was so lovely. The views, we're looking over at Winchcombe Ridge. Ask me about Winchcombe Ridge, Al.
What's Winchcombe Ridge like, Jerry?
It looks gnarly as, bro.
Gnarly ass.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, super steep either side, pinnacles. It links up with Neil Peak and Neil Saddle.
Neil Peak.
Yep.
Sounds like a left back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We could also see Mount Holdsworth in the distance. Just those times when you can just link everything up is real satisfying. So
Nice. Okay, so what happens from there? You walk along this treacherous ridge, gnarly ridge.
Yep. At that point we're on the Southern Crossing and over the gnarly bit. So we were sort of home and hose. We're heading to Alpha Hut.
Right.
For lunch. We got there about 12, so it was really good timing. Had our wraps. We carried on to we were heading to Tudawai Hut, where you and I were actually heading to.
Yes.
That other time, Al.
That fateful weekend.
Yeah. So this is actually starting to link up with our tramp now, because we came down from Alpha over Hell's Gate. It's the only way you go. Across Bull Mound, and then down the Omega track. It might have been the first time I'd done the Omega track. That one's super steep. That's the one that we were thinking about coming out.
Right. Yes, I remember you mentioning that. Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't sound like my cup of tea.
Yeah. No, I don't think you'd like it.
Okay. It's good to know.
The one thing that I would say for any trampers who are not sure or not less experienced now is that once you get to the bottom of the Omega track, you have to cross the Tararua River. Now, it's really hard to sometimes gauge how full the rivers are. You possibly got to jump on the Facebook forum, Tararua Facebook forum, and have an ask, or if you're just not sure, just read the weather for the decent week, just to make sure there hasn't been heaps of rain. That once you get down to that Tararua River, you'd just be in a bit of a pickle if you couldn't cross it, if it was too full to cross.
You have to go back up again.
Yeah. You might be able to camp on Bull Mound, maybe. But in this situation, I was conscious of that, but in this situation, it was completely fine.
Mm-hmm.
There had been a little bit of rain, but it had cleared up. And so yes, stayed on the flats at Turuwa Hut. Exactly what I had planned for you and I.
Yep.
It was a really cool night. We had there's quite a lot of people at Turuwa Hut, and we lit a fire outside. There was the big table there near the fire, and there's a whole heap of people that turned up. Actually, someone from university was there, who I sort of vaguely recognised. There was a couple of people from the Palmerston North Tramping Club. Yeah, really nice night, and just hanging out with people. And then, the next day we walked out via the Taraniko River, via the Smiths Creek shelter, and out over the Puff of Saddlewell, as you know.
Yeah. Well, know that bit like the back of my hand now, Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got down to the Kaitoke road end, just by the Scouts.
The YMCA.
Yeah, the YMCA, that's one. And I'd messaged Bren, who was our neighbour at the time, wasn't he, Al?
Yes.
And he came and picked me up. I'd already booked him in.
What a lovely chap.
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. The funniest thing was, though, is that my mum had given me a battery pack for my phone. You know, a battery charger.
Yes.
When I got to Kapakapanui on the Friday night, my battery went down to like 2%. It was super cold, and I went, oh, that's okay, I've got the battery charger. Went to get the cord that she'd given me, and none of it matched. So my fear from there was that I'd get to the Kaitoke road end on the Monday.
No, Brendan.
And not be able to message Brendan at all. But one of the lovely English lads had a battery charger and a cord at Elder Hut, so he helped me out there, yeah. And it just so happened that Bruce and Laurie, their ride never turned up. So Bren gave them a ride as well.
Of course he did.
and maybe we take the opportunity now, Al, to shout out to Bren. I haven't actually talked to him in a wee while, but he was really lovely and gave him a ride. You can just imagine, he was quite hungover as well. So you can imagine that Bruce and Laurie were sort of, they were just lovely sitting quietly in the back, but yeah.
Well, isn't that lovely? You made some new friends.
Yeah, and an awesome tramp. I recommend the Western Crossing for anyone who's up for it. It's awesome. It's my own sort of name for it, but it's a really good trip, and it's a bit like doing the Southern Crossing, but just slightly different. I almost think
in a different direction. Yeah.
Well, you can do the Southern Crossing in one day sometimes if you really want to run it. But generally the Southern Crossing's an overnighter. But this Western Crossing, I managed to turn into 3 nights.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And you didn't keep in touch with old Bruce and Laurie?
They have a bit of a pub group who go for a beer once I don't know what it was, fortnight, monthly, whatever. Yeah. And they do trips with them, and they did give me a message, but I don't think I ever got an invite to it. So that kind of, you can't expect to maintain friendships with everyone you meet out tramping, but
no.
But I was really grateful for their company. They were a real good crack. They were hard cases. They gave a lot of banter, but I'd like to think that I gave it back as well.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right, Jerry. Well, thanks for talking to me about your tramp there, your solo tramp, and you're giving me some reasons not to go walking on my own. Thank you very much. Now, I created a new childish topic for you, Jerry, called Knob of the Week. Would you like to hear what we did?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's get into it.
Well, here it is. This is Knob of the Week, so to speak. You know how I am largely a child in an adult's body.
Yeah.
After I listened to our adventure last time, and we had a nice trip, and I enjoyed the piano and all the various silliness that went along with it.
Yes.
I carried on listening to the podcast, and you had an interview with Franz, a very experienced tramper. It sort of, I thought, contrasted with my style.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed, Jerry, and you mostly, in that you managed to use the phrase "rocky knob" without even a little snigger. There was no snigger. There was no that's funny that's called rocky knob.
Yeah.
None of that. So I thought, well, I'm going to inject a bit of knob into your podcast,
okay,
so to speak, with Knob of the Week, and we're going to start with the aforementioned Rocky Knob.
Right.
Because I assume you have some experience on this knob.
I have. I've been in and around this knob
Around. Yeah. Yeah, good.
a few times in my life, Al.
Okay. Well, that leads into question one then. How much time have you spent on this particular knob, Jerry?
Okay. I've been up to it as like a 13-year-old with my St. Pat's school camp.
Yeah. Well, have you got any fond memories of this knob? I guess is my next question.
Actually, I wouldn't say the opposite, but on that trip that we got taken up there by our senior leaders,
Yeah.
the seventh formers, they taught us how big and amazing it is, and
Yeah.
the view from it amazing and all that. And when we got there, it's just this little. I think they pointed to a random rock in the track because it doesn't actually feel like.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the map now and I know where it is, but like.
Yeah. You don't know that you're there. No.
Kind of. The last time I went over it, I forgot to quickly check my map, and I walked over it.
Straight back. So it's not a memorable one, if you're honest.
Possibly not.
No. Oh well. So that probably answers my next question of do you want to go back to Rocky Knob?
I do actually. That's
You
a
do?
really interesting area. It's on the other side of Mount Reeves, going sort of heading down into the Waihinga River, but it comes out on private property, which is another whole discussion I want to talk about at some stage on the.
All right.
Yeah.
More of the serious chat about this area.
Oh! Fun fact about Rocky's Knob is that it's actually not too far away.
Yeah.
On the track, they have it marked. It's the very centre of New Zealand.
Well, there you go.
The centre of New Zealand, or something like that. It's literally, it's like got this big circle monument thing. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is interesting. I didn't have that written down. I noticed around near Rocky Knob there is another place that tickled my funny bone, which was Moorcock Saddle.
Oh.
Which just a side point there. But that's not the closest saddle, is it, Jerry? Could you tell me what the closest saddle is to Rocky Knob without looking at your map? I can see you.
I'm looking at the map. God, okay, I can't see it there.
I've got it brown as Pohangina.
Is it not Cone Saddle?
Don't know. There's Cow Saddle. Is that somewhere near there?
Yeah, that's on the other side.
Right. But anyway, Jerry, you're going to turn off your map because I'm asking you some questions now. Quiz questions. Quiz questions about Rocky Knob.
Yep.
Right. Give me the altitude within 100 metres and you get a point.
Ooh, good grief. It's not that high. It's not very high at all. I reckon it'll be about 350 metres.
Apparently 1266, 1226.
Hang on, are we looking at the right?
Probably the wrong knob.
Okay, I can see it on the map now.
Yes.
569.
Oh, right. Well.
What Rocky Knob are you looking at?
Maybe it grows at certain times.
Maybe.
All right, what's the closest hut to Rocky Knob?
It'll be Tutuwai Hut.
He's right. How many Rocky Knobs are there in New Zealand?
I know there's more than one. I know there's more than this one because when we were both talking about it, when we were messaging each other on WhatsApp, we were definitely looking at the wrong one, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. 4.
5.
5.
Southland, Wellington, Canterbury, Tasman, and Manawatu.
Okay.
And there you go. That was my 3 questions on the knob of the week. This week, Rocky Knob.
Rocky Knob. And this will be an ongoing segment?
If you enjoy it, Jerry, I will find out more about other knobs for you.
I kind of have this fear that I haven't been to actually that many knobs in the Tarurua Ranges. So
well, then you'll learn more.
It'll just be an exploratory mission in that case as well, won't
it? Yeah, you're inexperienced in that world.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Jerry. Well, thanks very much for joining me.
Thanks so much for hosting today's podcast.
You're very welcome. Very welcome.
Let's take a break, and afterwards I'll be back for Walk and Talk with Andy Carruthers on the SK.
See you later.
See you, Al. Thanks.
Bye.
Oh, we've been walking miles and now we'll take a break. And Jerry's got his boots closer, so we'll sit a while. Don't you go away.
Righto, today on Walk and Talk I'm joined by a bit of a Tararua extraordinaire, a regular tramper and runner of the Tarurua Ranges as well as other parts of Aotearoa. He has lots of different YouTube videos that I've watched personally over the years when researching different trips in the Tarurua Ranges. And in 2023 he released a documentary of running the Tararua SK. So on that basis, it's my pleasure to welcome Andy Carruthers to the show. Andy, ngā mihi nui, and thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be on the show. I got to hear about Tararua fever, I think it was a month or so ago, and I've been enjoying listening to your episodes. Well done on getting it up and running.
Well, thanks very much. I've kind of seen a lot of your YouTube videos for a long time now, and had you lined up for a few episodes, and so I was really happy to, when you messaged me back, say that you're already listening and stuff like that. It was really cool.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Andy, today I think I mostly wanted to speak with you about the documentary of running the SK. It's a fantastic watch, and I encourage anyone, whether they are familiar with tramping the Tarurua Ranges or tramping in general, or just no experience tramping at all, to check it out. I think what I love about it so much is it encompasses what is so rugged about venturing in the Tarurua Ranges. And in the doco, one of your first quotes from you, which I really, really love, is you say, challenging yourself in a wild environment where you are bound to face hardship is not everyone's cup of tea. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that when they go tramping in the Tarurua Ranges, whether they're running the SK or not. So my first question for you today, which is a bit of a facetious one, is, Andy, what's the rush?
Well, that's a good question, and I think so. I definitely enjoy going slow in the Tararua Range, and I also enjoy being in a rush. You know, really, my introduction to the range came through the Tararua mountain race over the Southern Crossing. So, you know, it's probably 15 years or so ago. I was doing a little bit of trail running and trying to get into some more, and so I entered that race and went and did that. You know, I mean, it absolutely blew my mind. It was such an incredibly challenging and amazing experience going across the Southern Crossing in a single push like that. That was kind of the start of my Tararua connection, and you know, a little bit later on that I got connected into the Wellington mountain running community, and through that, you know, there's a lot of incredible people doing these great kind of single push adventures in the range, and I think, you know, one of the things that was kind of a rush at that point was that my kids were really young, and it didn't really work for me to go away for days in the range.
Yeah.
But, you know, I made some friends through that community that were keen to go and do these cool loops and adventures where you'd go out for, you know, you might be gone for 24 hours, but you'd do this, you know, just amazing trip. And, you know, you'd get home and you'd still have, you know, time to spend with the family. So that was kind of the start of the rush. You know, one of the things you miss out on when you're in a rush is you miss out on the amazing sunrises and the amazing sunsets, you know, in these incredible locations that you can stay in the range. So, you know, as time allowed, and I've definitely got to enjoy more of that, and that's a big part of the enjoyment that I get being in the range. And
Fantastic. That's a great wee intro to it. Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, for listeners who may not know what the SK is, would you care to explain what it is, break it down for them, maybe what even the SK stands for?
Yeah, absolutely. The SK stands for Shoreman's, which is the northern end of the range. So there used to be a Shoreman's track which was kind of up near Patara, so Ekirahuna way. And the K stands for Kaitoke, so the southern end of the range. So, the SK is basically the northern to the southern end of the range. And, what I know about the history of it is back in the 60s, the 4 Wellington tramping clubs created the SK Weekend Challenge. So the challenge was that you leave work at 5 o'clock on Friday, you get the train to Ekirahuna, get a ride to the road end, tramp into, the first hut, stay the night, and get a few hours sleep, wake up early in the morning, tramp as fast as you can, all the way down the range to find, maybe get to Mangahuka or somewhere like that, sleep a few more hours, get up on Sunday morning and try and get out to Kaitoke so that you can be back at work Monday morning. So that's...
wow.
1963, the first pair, a guy by the name of Dave Kappa and Bruce Jeffries, were the first to successfully complete that weekend challenge.
And, from your documentary, I guess am I right to say that it's developed a bit of a cult following now?
Yeah, well, it had a really strong following in the 60s.
Right.
It was a really, it was a big deal. There's a great book which has a summary of all of the SK trip reports, and there have been 3 editions of that book now.
Oh wow!
The last one, the 3rd edition, came out in the I think it was kind of early 2000s, and there are many trip reports in there, and from reading through there was definitely a buzz in the 60s when people were initially trying to do it, and then like a couple of years later in 1965, Graham Dingle, who was this very fit young member of the Hutt Valley Tramping Club, went and did this incredible single push in under 24 hours down the Tarn Ridge route, and then there's definitely lots of trip reports through the 70s, a little bit less in the 80s, and then in 1995 there was a very famous Wellington mountain runner, Colin Ralph, who actually became the first person to ever complete the main range route, which is definitely the toughest of the routes, in under 24 hours. So that was a real milestone.
Yeah.
And then my understanding of what happened is that it very much died as a thing, because the tramping clubs their members were kind of becoming older, so kind of the whole SK challenge was it wasn't as appealing.
Yep.
And there weren't as many younger members coming into the clubs. It has definitely had a revival over the last 12 years, and that's mainly been driven by 2 Wellingtonians, Chris Martin and Chris Swallow, who's actually Chris Swallow's a Yorkshireman who came to Wellington, a very, very incredible runner, and he came from the Lake District in the UK, where they have lots of fell running. And so when he arrived in the community, he was looking at the hills and going, what can we do here? And he started finding out about the history, and found out about Colin Ralph and this these incredible routes in the Tararua, and they really revived this thing. And I think it was 2013, Chris Swallow did an SK with his mate Lawrence, and they were the second people to ever break 24 hours on that main range route.
Incredible. Is that the one in the documentary where he was ahead of his food drop? The person that was meant to drop some food for him, and he used a bit of oil and spice.
Yeah, that was actually another attempt, but yeah, same guy. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. Your documentary is fantastic. I was just sort of talking about the landscapes, and you must have used a lot of drone footage and all that. Down to the bare nitty gritty. What inspired you to do a documentary on the SK of the Tarurua Ranges?
10 years ago, I went to my first mountain film festival, and it was the Banff Mountain Film Festival World Tour that comes to Wellington every year. And I was sitting there, I was watching these incredible films that were just so inspiring about these people going on adventures. And I'd been playing with making little videos, for a little while at that point. And I was sitting there, I was going, man, I want to make a film like this. So, I kept kind of tinkering away, making little YouTube videos. But I started to become a little frustrated because, I would go on these great adventures. I'd shoot this beautiful footage. I'd put it together into a little video. And it just, it looked pretty. And, I'd put some music to it. And, I'd try and improve my editing each time. But it never really communicated just the magic of being on an adventure in those wild, incredible places.
Yeah.
So I then I decided that I needed to go and do some study. So I signed up for some film courses. I signed up for some documentary storytelling courses. And one of the courses I did, I went to the Adventure Film School, which is part of the New Zealand Mountain Film Festival, which is in Wanaka every year. As part of doing that course, part of the coaching we got was, what's a incredible story that you're passionate about that you could tell. And, for me, the Tararua SK was that.
Yeah.
An incredible community, an incredible piece of history, something I was personally very connected to. I was very, very lucky that I came across this mountain running community right at the time that it was being rekindled.
Right.
The SK was coming back to life. And one of the things that I got to do is I got to actually video the first ever SK Awards night, which was held in, I think it was 2016. That night, there were 5 or 6 people speaking about doing the SK. And, they all had presentations, and Colin Ralph was there. He'd come up from Nelson, from where he was living, to be a key guest there that night. Chris Swallow was speaking, and, it was just an incredibly inspiring event. Yeah, so that was kind of the start of my SK journey, and it's been an incredible ride.
I mean, in terms of the SK, my dad told me about it years ago, and so I'd always had it ticked on my radar. And then it was, 2023 when I saw your documentary come out, and I underestimated the community around it. I underestimated how big it was in the running community itself. I'd go out and I see runners. I'd been to Waitawaiwai once, coming back and seen a runner on their way in, and they were about to go up onto the main range to do Maunga Hooker and come out that same day. And I'm going, you're nuts. And they've got a waste of water bottles on them and stuff like that. So it is really, really impressive. But I guess that gets me into a little bit of the detail of your documentary. Am I correct in understanding from your doco that you'd had at least one attempt and didn't quite manage it?
Yeah, I had 2 failed attempts before I completed it.
Yeah.
So I came across the SK about 12 months before I had my first attempt, and kind of all of that year, I started reading these trip reports, and I was like, wow. Then went to the awards night, and and so basically that year was kind of training for the SK and going and doing these incredible loops in the range. Go up and do a southern main range loop, which you're talking about. Going in at Otaki and going up via Mangahuka and out down via Waitawaiwai, and then you go and do a Dundas loop. So you'd go in at Patara and up onto the main range, and then come down past Dundas and go up and over Cattle Ridge, and so kind of 12 months building up to that, and then that year it was pretty amazing. Like the longest day of the year, it was kind of around December 20th. We had this kind of this window, which is kind of like a 24-hour window of good weather for being on the main range, and there were quite a few people out there, trying to do a main range, and I got about a third of the way in and severely rolled my ankle, and had to hobble out, and
these things happen.
It was pretty gutting, but
you talked about getting lost in some clag as well. I mean, it's pretty gnarly up there.
My second attempt, we started at night and got lost in some clag up above Hirapai, and ended up doing a couple of circles, and that attempt I got as far as Mangahuka, and I was absolutely just wasted by the time I got there. So that didn't go great. So
that possibly segues nicely into my next question of you're out there, you're doing it, you're feeling the pain, you're feeling that hardship that you talk about. Do you have any small techniques mentally, physically, that help you get through? What's going through your mind when you're just aching, mind, body and soul? How do you get through it?
That's a very good question. So, it's super important to keep eating and drinking. If you can keep eating and drinking, it's quite incredible what your body can do. And, like in my experience, it's definitely, for me, it's my mind that gives out well before, my body gives out. Being able to kind of keep mentally focused to keep going, and maybe breaking it down into stages, and going, okay, so we're starting the SK, but first kind of goal, let's we kind of want to get to a ret, so we're going to get to a ret, and then from there, let's get up to maybe it's Mangahuka. Make sure you keep drinking and eating, and just trying to enjoy the good things that you can about that experience. And I think also being kind of grateful for having the opportunity to be in this amazing place, to going on this great adventure. Just thinking about the stories about other people that have done it, and also there's definitely a challenge aspect about kind of being able to push yourself through some of that hardship. And there's something amazing about that, because like everyday life isn't like that.
No, completely. I get that when I'm tramping. I don't run it, but I tramp it, and going up, the steepest of hills, and you get to that view at the end, and it's all worth it. But you've got to get there first, and and that makes you present.
Absolutely.
I'm mentioning a lot of things that you've you've listed in the documentary. You mentioned that the Tararua Ranges has 160 days a year of gale force winds.
Yeah.
200 days of rain.
Yeah.
Clag that can chill to your bone and get you lost at times. And I hope I've got this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the equivalent of doing Mount Everest twice.
Yeah, the vertical climb is the same as climbing Mount Everest twice from base camp. So
Right. I mean, that makes me feel awesome when I'm out there. How on earth do you plan to do an SK then? What do you've got your gear, you've got your routes, you've got your time, you're trying to pick a weather window. Can you walk me through that?
I mean, I think it's like kind of training or preparing for any type of kind of big trip or undertaking, right? Like there's there's a fitness aspect, right? So you want to spend time doing some of those routes and understanding how much travel time it's going to take you to travel certain sections of the route. And there's a lot of trip reports and a lot of information so that you can kind of plan that out. There's a lot of reading to be done. There's a lot of kind of wrecking of the route. There's then just planning out what your food is going to look like, because it's different for everyone. You know what it's like when you're out on a tough tramp, right? Your tastes kind of change. It's nice to have different variety. That's one of the really enjoyable things about going into the Tararua, right? Is that you get to work hard, so you get to eat lots of yummy stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
And one of the things I guess I've learned over the years is you start off thinking that you just want sugar, but you actually want lots of savouries and lots of different kind of textures and flavours.
Yeah.
Then there's the weather, right? There's also the gear that you're going to carry, and one of the things about fast tramping is that because you're only going to be on the tops for a certain period of time, you need to have your emergency gear, but you can travel a lot lighter than if you're tramping for 3 or 4 days up there. If you're only going to be out for let's say 30 hours, you need your emergency gear to make sure that you're safe, and so that if you have to overnight, you can, but you don't need all the stuff that you would take if you're going up there for days.
I hope you never do a pack audit on me, Andy. I would be rather embarrassed compared to someone like yourself. What I carry, yeah. Sometimes it's about 20 to 22 kilos of gear, yeah.
I love the stories. I don't know if you've read much of Jeff Spearpoint's trip reports or any of his books, but one of the stories I love constantly hearing about him is every time he leads a trip, he takes a set of scales to the road end, and he weighs everybody's packs before they start. And if they're over a certain amount, he unpacks their pack and they take out all of the stuff that they don't need to take, because he knows that if they've got too much weight in their pack, they're not going to have as an enjoyable time as if they had a lighter pack.
Yeah. Joe Murphy.
Yeah.
Is he one of your friends?
Yes.
I used to play football with him.
Against him or with him?
No, with him. He played for a team at Island Bay Football Club called Triple H. And so I just got to know those guys. I played for a different team, but they used to ask me to fill in from time to time. I must say, it was awesome seeing him in the documentary. And there were some fascinating statistics on him. I mean, at the time of recording it, you say that he'd ran it 11 times already, and he was trying to do it once a month from the time of you recording it. So I wanted to ask, how many, I mean, if he's still doing it once a month, how many times would that be? which I doubt he is, but...
No, so the challenge he set himself was to do it once a month for the year of 2023.
Right.
I think he completed it in that year 11 times and had a couple of failed attempts as well during that year. So absolutely astounding. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I don't think there's anybody that's kind of close to the number of, SKs that he's done. And, most of them are very, very fast. He's an absolute legend.
He's a machine.
Amazing.
Yeah, he's a machine. And a really, really lovely guy. Everything that you say there speaks to what I've known from him. I haven't seen him in a very long time. I have this one memory on the football field of him, and I hope he wouldn't refute this, but this is my memory, of him completely laying out a guy down. He flattened him. But with the biggest smile that Joe has, he helped him back up and said, "Are you all right, mate?" And he did it all within the rules of the book. It wasn't a dirty tackle. He just smashed him. And I thought that sums him up quite nicely there. And the fact that he's done so many SKs like that, he's very inspirational.
Yeah, amazing guy.
We mentioned before you've got lots of YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You also have a blog. Can you tell me about some of them?
So I started 10, 12 years ago. Myself and two of my best mates decided that we would go and run all of the great walks in New Zealand. Every 3 months we went on an adventure, and I got a little GoPro and started videoing them and putting together little videos. So that was kind of the start of my little filmmaking, and that was also the start of the blog as well. It was just going, okay, it'd be cool just to have somewhere to kind of document some of these things. Most of the time when I go on an adventure, I take my GoPro and I normally make a little video, or trying to kind of make more kind of short films now, and I put them on the YouTube channel and put them on the blog and do a little trip report, so that if other people are looking for information about different adventures, or they're wanting to kind of see some of the terrain or see some of the magnificent landscapes and opportunities that we have for adventures in New Zealand, they can do that.
Thank you, because you're really informative for me, and over the last few years of being able to do a bit of research, do a bit of recce for different trips that I wanted to do. There was you went up and checked out a plane crash. I think it was around Shingle Slip Knob. Is that the one? And I went up and checked it out. It was because of stuff like that I was able to. So I thank you. It also strikes me that far be it for me to compare myself to someone like yourself, but passion, it seems like, will take you a long way. And I'm not a content creator. I've made a podcast basically because I just want to keep talking about the Tarurua Ranges and tramping them all the time. I wouldn't consider, I call myself an imposter expert, I know a little bit, I know some stuff, I can facilitate a conversation, but really it's people that like yourself that bring a lot of expertise to the conversations that I'm trying to have.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be able to, kind of dive deeper into our hobby, right?
Yeah.
Our hobby and our passions, and I don't think you need to be an expert to be able to contribute something to the community about your passion. I think those people that want to watch, read, or listen will do that, and they will enjoy it, and those that don't won't, and that's absolutely fine. I get incredible satisfaction out of recording footage and putting that together into a little video or short film, putting together a little trip report, and there's definitely some friends and family and people I know that get some satisfaction out of me doing that, and that's a nice reward for my energy in doing that, and I know that people, including myself, are enjoying what you're doing, which is cool.
Yeah, no, thank you. I definitely have the SK on my radar. I've got my to-do list is huge in the Tarurua Ranges. There's lots that I have done, but there's still lots to do. And I don't know if I want to run it like you guys. You guys are very impressive. I used to love keeping fit for football, but I hate running. I like tramping. I'd like to do the SK across maybe 4 days or something like that. So yeah, I hope to bump into you out there maybe one time, or at least let you know once I've done it.
Yeah, no, I think the SK in whatever form you want to do it in it's an amazing adventure. It was about 6 months or so after the film came out. I was up at Mangahoka with one of my daughters and with a mate and his son. And at Mangahoka that night, there were a couple that had always wanted to do an SK, and they'd seen the film and they were doing the SK, and I think they did it over 5 or 6 days, and they were having just this amazing adventure.
Yeah. How amazing for them to bump into you.
Oh yeah, it was so cool to bump into them and to be having a chat about it, and
yeah,
they did a great write up about it, which actually got published on the Wilder Life blog, the FMC blog.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Yeah, it was a very cool journey they had.
Look, Andy, it's been fantastic having you on the on Walk and Talk. I guess I have one question, and maybe to quote you from your documentary before we wrap up. What's your next adventure?
It's a good question. I had a little adventure on the weekend. I was up in the range with my brother-in-law, and it was his first trip into the Tararua, and we went up and we bivvied the night on South King.
Oh yeah.
It was a bit of clag and a bit of rain, so it was a bit of a wild night. So that was a fun adventure. We got a nice clear day on Sunday, so we got to enjoy some of the magic of the tops.
Lovely.
But next adventure on the list at the moment is to go to Ivory Lake.
Ah, okay. I don't know where that is.
So that is in the Southern Alps, up kind of above Hokitika, and it's one of those nice kind of remote huts that you get to read a few write-ups about, and it's a pretty kind of challenging place to get to. Definitely takes a few days.
Yep.
I've got that on my list, and then over the last couple of years I've been getting into some ski touring, so I've got a couple of ski touring trips planned as well, so I'm looking forward to those.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again, Andy. It's been a great pleasure to have you on. Like I said, been eyeing you up for a while, and so thank you for agreeing. And yeah, glad you've got the fever.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andy. Righto. Thank you again to Andy Carruthers for being on the show, and not only doing the SK, which I would say is no mean feat, but for doing it as fast as they can and in under 24 hours. Madness and bloody impressive, if you ask me. I will leave a link for his documentary in the show notes. I definitely suggest you check it out. But I'll also leave another link for his blog, which is taruruask.com/blog in the show notes. And I definitely encourage people to go check that out as well. It's not only in the Tarurua Ranges, his adventures, and you can find out more about what Andy does on there. Okay, just before we round things off for today, I have a couple of minor corrections from the last episode where I've been doing deliveries of Tararua 101s. And last episode I talked about access points into the Tararua Ranges. And I got a couple of things that I want to correct or amend or clarify for them. First one is when I mentioned the Otaki Forks road end and how the slip came down originally. And I think I had alluded to it being in 2016 with the earthquake that was in Seddon that hit Wellington, and I was very wrong there. That was actually clarified by Mike from the Kapiti Coast District Council in that episode. So I just want to say that, correct myself there. I'm not sure what made me think that was related to the earthquake. Maybe I was right in some weird way, but that was not revealed in that episode. So I'm just clarifying that I don't think that it was the case. Secondly, in that episode, I spoke about the access point after the Wahina Gorge road end, but before the Holdsworth road end that takes you to Sayers Hut. And again, I didn't really go much into detail on that road end because I've actually never done it. But it's called the Mangaterere road end, and it's in the Mangaterere Valley Road. And if you stay tuned for the next episode, my guest lives in that area, so there'll be a lot more information to come about that. And lastly, I also mentioned the Ikatahuna road end that takes you up to Roaring Stag or Hirapai and beyond. And the correct, one of the other names for that road end is the Putara road end. And you just heard Andy referring to that as well, as it's one of the starting points of the SK if you choose to start at that road end. So these names can be used interchangeably, but I realised the other day that I didn't mention it, so I think it is just worth mentioning there. And I guess on that note, when I did that segment of the access points, I actually did it all from my own mind. I didn't have a map in front of me, which is probably not that impressive. There's people who know far more about the Tarurua Ranges than I do, but I'll probably try use a map now when trying to impart information. I often do try use a map, but that one I was trying to just get it out in a hurry. But yeah, so I'll use maps from now on. Okay, and finally, I just wanted to touch on my reflection from the start of the show of why I choose to not go tramping on my own, that solo sort of tramping. And in doing so, I want to reiterate that I totally respect other people's choice to go solo tramping for many different reasons. The additional point that I want to make here is that last week there was an article that came out. There was actually quite a few articles that came out on this. And it was about the Irish tramper in 2023, in January, I think it was January 23, the 6th of January 2023, here it is, Terence Elliott, and he died at Constantina Knob. The article that I read illustrates the increased risk when tramping alone. And apparently Terence had gone on a disused track around Constantina Knob, which is just beyond Neil Forks and going up to Maungahuka. And he'd slipped and fallen down a steep gully, I think. Terence, although had pulled his PLB, had died by the time the search party had found him a few hours later. And the article goes on to say that he was a very experienced tramper, or quite an experienced tramper, and had also spent time in the Tarurua Ranges in previous years when living in Wellington, I think. Now, the Mountain Safety Council states in this article that I read that although solo tramping was not the cause of death, that going out by yourself does bring additional complexities. And I think that's just the point that I was really trying to make in my own reflection there of why I choose not to, because I think I've heard it many times that things can just get quite sticky when you're by yourself, and the risk sort of elevates quite a lot more if something goes wrong. And at the time, it turns out that my partner and I, Lex, we were literally at Maungahuka a couple of hours away when Terence passed away. So yeah, it's a really sad example, and I don't mean to sound arrogant at all by using it to support my point, but this, I think, is a tiny reminder about the increased risks that can come from tramping alone. There's also been the recent example of the English guy down south who went missing up at Mount Maida in Fiordland, and I think he was only out for a small walk, I believe, and I'm not sure if he did have a PLB. In the other example with the Irish man in Constantina Knob, he did have a PLB. He was able to pull it himself, but by the time the search and rescue party got there, it was a bit too late. So yeah, these are really unfortunate and really sad events. Our thoughts obviously always go out to the families and people who know these people. But yeah, so that's my reason for choosing to go out with one of my mates. Just another person is enough for me a lot of the time. I think there's other complexities when you go out with a party that's too big, and people get too ambitious, or other people have different abilities. So there are complexities around this. But yeah, look, I'll wrap it up. I never want to put any pressure on Finn, my production manager, but I know that people are always dying to hear these episodes. I've been getting a lot of correspondence about that. No pressure, Finn. Look, if we are going out this weekend or, sometime soon, please take care, obviously, with the caveats that I've been putting in there in this episode. And really enjoy the Tarurua Ranges or wherever you are in Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's, as I like to say, it's a too beautiful environment not to go out and enjoy it. So yeah. Okay, I'll catch you on the next one. Mate wa.
Glad you've got the fever.
Okay,
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
here we go.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay. Nearly finished editing episode 7. I think I'll finish it off in the morning. A beautiful London evening. Okay. Time for sleep.
Welcome to another episode. This is episode 6, Islands in the Sun, Kojiri Tokuringwa. This week, I thought it was particularly apt to do the Tararua 101 on access points of the Tararua Ranges. So, the Tararua Ranges. They span roughly from about several access points between an access point to say is Hut. Now I think that's Woodside, which is just out of a very valuable access point. When I say that there's Gorge Roading, which it's a fantastic roading, not to be confused with the Kaitoke campsite. It's a little bit of a warren of roads. That's a roading that I actually omitted before. There's the Wainawa
I forgot to mention one of the roadings, and I mentioned it later on. After in-depth discussions with Finn, our production manager,
that was just a little bit of a discussion with my production manager Finn.
After in-depth discussions with Finn, our production manager.
Hey bro, I'm just listening as I'm working actually comes before the Holdsworth road end. So yeah, still slightly out of order.
Make a tough call and put it back in its rightful place. Join us
It
next
comes
time.
after the Wahine Gorge road end.
It's just a little bit of a discussion with my
Sort of road. I think I want to do a minor correction to one of the minor corrections, but I still want the road ends.
I filmed Lord of the Rings there, the Rivendell scenes and stuff like
Get
that.
through as soon as possible. I also want to add another little
Access points.
road end.
On the Poe side of there are several access and also the access points area that point. Beyond the Poes road there are several side of on the access points side and beyond the Poes road ends. 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 That's a Beyond the Poes road ends. That's a Beyond the Poes road ends. That's a Ikatahuna. Beyond the Poes road ends. That's a access points of the Tarurua Ranges. Poes road ends. That's a topographical map. Beyond the Poes road ends. That's the Wahine Gorge. Very awesome access points. Poes road ends. That's a I really love life. It's a road in at a farm, as many are. It's a road in at a farm, as many are. Gosh, it's a road in at a farm, as many are. It's a road in at a farm, as many are. Beyond the Poes road ends. It's a road in. Access points to say it's cut. Poes road ends. I appreciate Flynn. Beyond the Poes road ends. Very awesome access points. Poes road ends. Matewa. I really love life. It's a road in at a farm, as many are. Many road in at a farm, as many are. Gosh, it's a road in at a farm, as
Nakatuna.
Oh, God. It was a dream. Episode 6 is done. There'll be no more of that stuff. As long as it doesn't come up in the episode 7 outro.